Hey everyone, Brandon here from TruckSafe Consulting. Now that the FMCSA's new entry-level driver training rule for CDL drivers is in effect, we wanted to spend some time discussing the rule, including who has to obtain the training, who can provide the training, and then we'll do a quick walkthrough of the ELDT website and how it works at the end of the video. So stay tuned, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons below so you can stay up to date on all of our new DOT-related content. So if you're watching this video, you probably heard about the entry-level driver training requirement for CDL drivers that went into effect in February of 2022. If you're not familiar with the new rule at all, you may want to check out our earlier video where we discussed the rationale for the rule and its nuances. But now that the rule is in effect and the FMCSA's Training Provider Registry is up and running, we wanted to take a minute to discuss some of the things we've learned about the new training requirement from the FMCSA over the past several months. Now, before we get there, here's a quick refresher of who is subject to the new requirements. The entry-level driver training rules apply to the following categories of CDL drivers: those obtaining a Class A or Class B CDL for the very first time, those upgrading an existing Class B CDL to a Class A CDL, and those seeking to obtain school bus, passenger, or hazmat endorsements to their CDL for the first time. These three categories of drivers are subject to the entry-level driver training requirements and have to obtain the required training in order to complete their CDL transactions. Now, I'll pause here to note that this requirement does not apply retroactively, meaning it doesn't apply to drivers who already held a valid CDL or those endorsements prior to February 7th of this year. In other words, the requirement only applies to those categories of CDL drivers who are looking to complete those CDL transactions after February 7th. Now, the training itself is broken down into certain core and endorsement curricula. That curricula is divided into a theory component and a behind-the-wheel component, and CDL drivers must obtain this training from a training provider that's listed on the FMCSA's Training Provider Registry, which we'll discuss shortly. Drivers seeking to obtain a Class A or B CDL for the first time, or upgrading a Class B to an A CDL, have to proceed through a particular curriculum that's tailored for their circumstance. And drivers who fall into the category of obtaining an S, P, or H endorsement would take a more limited curriculum addressing the issues that are pertinent to those endorsements. Now, the regulation doesn't set any minimum hours for the theory or behind-the-wheel components of this training. However, each driver taking the theory component will be tested and will have to achieve an overall score of at least 80% on that test in order to pass. As for the behind-the-wheel component, drivers have to complete range and public road segments, which will include discrete maneuvers, and the driver must master those maneuvers to the satisfaction of the training provider. Again, there's no minimum hours component to the behind-the-wheel portion, but the driver must pass the portion to the satisfaction of his or her training provider. Now, once a driver passes both the theory and the behind-the-wheel components, then the certified training provider will issue a certificate and will electronically upload that certificate to the Training Provider Registry, which then interfaces with the state licensing agency systems so that those agencies know that the driver is now eligible to take the appropriate skills test to complete their CDL transaction. So that's a quick overview of the new requirement, but let's take a look at the FMCSA system now that it's up and running. Here we see the agency's Training Provider Registry, available at tpr.fmcsa.dot.gov. On this site, you'll find a lot of helpful information, including details on who is subject to the new requirements, a list of registered training providers, a way for drivers to check their training status, and answers to some frequently asked questions. Starting on the homepage here, you can see at the top that we're able to search for registered training providers based on their types of training they offer, their location, and/or their name. This is useful if you're a driver that's seeking out training from a registered provider that's near you or one that provides theory-based training online. Simply indicate the type of training you're interested in and your location and click the search button. This will pull up a list of nearby training providers offering the types of training you searched. You'll see you can also filter the list to show in-person and online options, and then click through to the training providers' websites to learn more. If you're a registered training provider, you'll see that you can now log into your account through the registry website in order to register your training locations and upload the required certification information for any drivers who successfully complete your courses. Back to the homepage here, you'll also find some links where you'll find detailed information about the training requirements. Clicking on the ELDT applicability tab will take you to a page that describes precisely who needs to obtain the training, along with answers to commonly asked FAQs. As an example here, we see the FMCSA clarifying that those who obtain their CDL or CLP prior to February 7th of 2022 are not required to obtain the entry-level driver training. There's also a separate FAQ page addressing many more common questions. So that's the FMCSA's Training Provider Registry in a nutshell. Again, you'll find a host of information about the new rule on that website, including the list of registered training providers. We appreciate you taking a minute to watch this video. Make sure you check out our website at trucksafeconsulting.com, where you'll find all kinds of educational materials on these types of topics, including our comprehensive online DOT compliance courses for safety managers and drivers. And also be sure to follow us on our various social media accounts, where we regularly post DOT compliance related content. As always, thanks for watching and be safe.